To put it in landscape.
Is it live?
Yeah, it's just your live.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Serena here from Thrift Diving, and today, hopefully you can see me, I am live in my garage. It's been a while since I've uploaded a proper video, and I'm actually in the garage working on a closet organizer, and I'm going to show you everything that I'm doing here. But I wanted to go through with you guys some tools and ideas that you can use for getting straight cuts and to measure properly, because when I ask people what are the biggest DIY problems that you have when it comes to tools, a lot of times people say, I can't cut properly, I don't know how to use tools, and I'm afraid I'm going to mess up the measurements, things aren't turning out. So what I'm going to do today is walk you through, I've got my son here on the camera, and I'm going to walk you through some of the tools that I've been using to create this. Now, I'm just in the very beginning part of building this structure, so you're going to see it when it's all done. I will upload it to my channel. But I'm going to walk you through the 6, maybe 7 tools that you can use to get straight cuts. And let's jump into it right now. So what I've got here, put the camera down here. What I've got here is some maple plywood that I'm actually using to build this. And some of the tools that I've been using are really making this important for getting straight cuts. So let's go through. I'm going to move some of these things out of the way, because I think when you're getting started with trying to do a project, right, you have to learn how to take proper measurements. But before you can even get there, I wanted to point out to you guys the importance of proper planning. So when you're starting a project, and I can tell you this, and I'll show you these plans in just a moment, I taught myself how to use SketchUp. And when you're starting a project and you're building with wood, I cannot tell you how much time is necessary for proper planning, guys. If you know exactly where you need to cut, and if you know exactly where you need to make a dado, which I'll show you in just a moment, we're actually going to do a demonstration. If you've never seen a dado being cut with a router, we're going to do that tonight. So stick with me, stay around for that. But I have to tell you, you have to properly plan. So make sure you have good tools and make sure you properly plan. So Kwabena, put the camera down here. So guys, you may have seen this if you've been on my channel. On the community tab, I've been posting some of this. This is what I've been drafting. So just to give you an idea, this is what I'm trying to create. It's 8 feet tall by 7, I think it's 7 foot 4 1/4 inches wide. And for me to even draft this out, I had to do a lot of planning. So whenever you're trying to build anything, or even if you're painting furniture, make sure that you are doing due diligence to know exactly what you have to do before you get started. You might want to take a detailed, make a detailed cut list, create a materials list. I know for this project, I mean, the materials list is a page long. So this is part of the organizer that I'm building. I don't know if I told you guys, but I'm starting a podcast. And whenever you're doing podcasting, you definitely want to have good audio. So in my walk-in closet, which is not very big, it's like 5 by 7, I'm going to have a little desk area here where I'll be able to record. And since there'll be clothes and shoes and all that, it should hopefully help with the sound quality. And this is just to give you an idea of looking down, like a bird's eye view of what the closet's going to look like. So in terms of the planning, what I've been working from over the past week here is a detailed list of what I need to cut out. So this blue that you see here is, let's say, a 4 by 8 sheet of plywood. So I drafted out. You want to get a little closer, Kwabena, so people can see. What I did was I drafted out exactly how it's going to lay out on the plywood. So I've got my measurements here, and these are the dados that I'm going to be cutting. And I'll show you that in just a moment, because there's one that I actually forgot to cut. You can see that I cut one of the dados here, 1/4 inch. There you go. So I'm going to show you how I actually did that and how you can make sure that that's straight. And then here's another cut list that I put together. Don't worry, I'm actually going to have all of this for you guys. When I'm ready to post this project, it's going to go on my blog and on the YouTube channel, of course. So this is what I've been working from. And I think the part that was really stressful for me in getting started with this project is that I was so afraid that I was going to cut properly, that I was going to, because I've done it before, trust me. I was so afraid that I was going to get wonky cuts. So let me show you the tools that I'm using. Some of the things I will list down below. Some of the things I'm going to show you, I won't show you how to make them, but I'll walk you through how to do them so that you can do these things. So let's go to the first tool here. All right, so this first tool that I'm going to show you guys, this is by Woodpecker. If you have not discovered Woodpecker, this is oh my gosh, they're such an amazing brand of tools, measuring tools and things like that. The only thing is they're pretty expensive. So, you know, if you want to invest in good quality tools, I highly recommend this. This is a T-square, but one thing you'll notice here on the back, it's got this beveled edge. So when you're doing projects and you want to get a good even cut, this little ledge here will hook onto the bottom of your plywood. So by hooking that onto the plywood and making sure that you've got a straight edge here, you're able to make sure that whatever measurement you get from this is going to be accurate. Now let me show you where the magic happens with this tool. Where's my pencil? This is the one that my son was about to smash in the vase. The vise, sorry. Okay, so on this part of the plan, I'm actually going to be measuring, let's see here, I believe it's 18 3/8. So again, if you have a set of plans, make sure that you have it in front of you because you will mess up unless you look at this. Okay, so if you notice, this is the piece that I'm working from, right? So I've got this little edge cut here. My plans tell me that I need to measure up 18 3/8 inch. Now you can use a tape measure to do that. And that will actually work. But if you have a straight edge like this, you're going to be able to get really accurate measurements. So see if you can get in close here, Kavna. So come up here. So do you see all these little measurements here, guys? So I'm going for 18 3/8 inch. So I've got the 18 and I can find 18 3/8, which is right here. So all I got to do is stick my mechanical pencil. Come on top so you can see. All I got to do is stick my mechanical pencil right here in 18 3/8. Hopefully you guys can see that pretty well. So let me show you how this works. Okay, now zoom out. All right, so so I'm going to stick my pencil here. I'm going to make sure that I've got my hand here on the edge. And my pencil, mechanical pencil, if you try to use a regular pencil, it's a little too thick and you're not going to be able to get it in there. All I'm going to do is drag. So this is allowing me to get an exact, oh my gosh, hold on. That's not exact. I put the light, I couldn't see. I put it in the wrong hole. You see, guys, accidents happen. All right, because I wasn't paying attention. All right, so I've got my pencil in 18 3/8. And so now I can bring this down. And, you know, it's really true. When you want to measure twice and cut once, you want to be very careful because if I wasn't paying attention, I would have cut here on this line. And I'm not doing this just to show you that mistakes can be made. I actually did make a mistake. I'm going to finish this off here at the top. All right. Now this is for the dado that I'm going to cut. And I will show you guys that it's a pretty messy procedure. But now here's a tool that I bought, and this is another. I guess you would say this is tool number 2. So I actually just bought this the other day. I went to the woodworking store. It's called BORA. It's a straight edge. Hi guys. So this is called BORA. It's a straight edge. And if you look on the back of it, it's got 2 pieces here. You've got this part with some rubber feet, and then you've got this little slide. So back up a little bit, Kwabna. I'm going to show people how this works. Back up a little. All right. So what I like about this, and the reason why I bought this was actually kind of expensive. I did not want to buy this. I went to the woodworking store and I tried to negotiate with them because I told them it was like $40 on Amazon, and they said, no, we can't negotiate with you. So I spent $50 on this, but this is why it's really, really a good tool, because what I can do with this is I can hook this on one end without having to go over to the other side. And then over on this side, let me move my wood back here a little bit. And here I got bench dogs. Yeah, you also need a clean garage too when you're doing projects, which I do not have. I'm always like stepping around. Okay, so with one end hooked over here, all I've got to do is connect that and then back out. I'm going to show people. And then let's say I want to put it right here. Now I'll show you exactly how to measure for this. But then all this does is it slides against your wood and it locks into place. And this is important if you're doing any kind of projects where you need a straight edge. A lot of times when you're using something like a jigsaw, for example, which I will show you later, another tool that gets straight cuts, you need something to ride against this rail. You know, people who are using power tools, we're not like so amazing that we just have this steady hand. It doesn't happen that way. But with all of these tools, we can get a straight cut. This also works with a router, which you'll see in just a moment because I'm going to route this edge. But it also works with a circular saw, anything that you want to ride along that edge. Here's the thing though, when you have an edge like this, and this is called BORA, I will put links down below where you can get this. When you are using a tool like this, excuse me, that. You have to think about where your cut line is. Now, you know this line that I just put here at the 18 and 3/8? That's exactly where I want the edge of my dado to be, right? So the dado is going to be along the board this way. This is my router. And if you notice, it's got a straight edge here, right? That is so when you are doing a cut, a dado cut, any kind of routing, you can have this. Can you see that, Quab 9? You can have this right against the fence. This is going to give you the nice smooth cut that you're looking for. You cannot do this free-handed. But here's the thing. You have to know where to position this. So in the last couple of days, what I've been doing is playing around doing a lot of test cuts and test measurements because I want to make sure, where's my tape measure? Oh, here it is. I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. I'm not messing up. Plywood is about $55 per sheet. That is nothing that you want to mess up because if you mess it up, you got to go back to the store and get more. So what I discovered is that from this cut line, I've got to go up about, and I actually wrote it on the tool, I've got to go up 2 inches and 11/16. So 2 and 11/16. So this is what I've been doing. Now, when you're measuring, here's another tip for you guys. When you're measuring, don't feel that you have to start like this, because if you do that, you're always going to get your measurements wrong. You see this little part here, it wiggles, and it's supposed to wiggle. That wiggles because it depends on where you're taking your measurement from. If you're hooking it on something, it goes like that. If you're pushing it against something, it goes in, and I believe it's about a 1/16. So here's a little tip, and we do this in carpentry too, so that you get an accurate measurement. Pick any number. I'm just going to pick 4. I'm putting it right on that line that I created, and I'm going to go up 2 inches and 11/16, which puts me 8, 9, 10, 11 right here. Okay. Down here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stick it on 4. I'm going to count up 2 inches and 8, 9, 10, 11, 11/16. All right, so this line that you see here, this is another thing that I like about this tool too, going back to the Woodpecker, is that when I put this against this factory edge, I can get really straight lines. Now this line that I gave, this line that I'm putting here, this is so that I can put this straight edge in place.
Oh, someone donated $5.
Whoa, thank you. You guys are awesome. Houdini, Unchained, you are awesome. Thank you. Okay, so this line that we created, I know this may sound confusing, guys, but just pay attention because it's all going to come together. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this edge, lock it in here, not lock it, but I'm going to stick it against here, and I'm going to line it up with that line that I just created. Now, this is where you want to try to keep it as even as possible. Don't let it move. Remember, push it against your wood, lock it in place. So now what we have is we have a really straight edge here. It's not clamped to the table, it's clamped to the wood. So this is not going to move. Now we can actually do our routing. And I'll tell you a little bit about the router too. So whenever you're doing furniture, and I'll explain this more in the video that comes out, whenever you're doing furniture, actually, let's see if I've got, oh, okay, here we go. Let me use this piece. So this is another piece that I cut. And Fabna, can you get it? See? So you see that I've got this edge here that I routed, or this dado. So the reason why this is important is because whenever you're building furniture, you don't have to do this, but this is the first time that I've done it, and I think I want something that's going to be really, really structurally sound. This board, now I'm not on an even surface, so I'm not going to try to force it in here, but what's going to happen is this board is going to sit in this dado. And the reason why it's tight, because some of you may be thinking, well, it doesn't fit. You want it to be tight, because if this is loose, it's not going to offer any structural support. So that's why we're doing dados. Now with the router, all over everything. Okay, so with the router, sorry, Kwabna. Here's another tool. This is tool number 3. And this is in relation to what we're about to do. I'm going to do a demonstration for you with the router. This is a tool that I love. This is called, I don't even know what it's called, but it's by Kreg, K-R-E-G. And the reason why I love this tool is because you can lock in measurements and repeat them very easily. So let me give you an example. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm just going to use, I have a scrap board actually. Where is it? Oh, it's behind you. Let's use the scrap. I don't want to do this on my actual project. Okay, so let's say, for example, I want to do a 1-inch line down this board. Now, you could pull out the tape measure and do 1 inch, 1 inch, but that takes a long time. With a tool like this, all you've got to do is set that depth, lock it in place, and then mark your board. And then check this out. All I have to do is move it. Pretty simple, right? So with this router that you're about to see, so this was my other tool for getting straight cuts, because again, it all has to do with measurement. That's where it starts. So with this tool here, if you can look here, this is my router, and I'm laying it on its side because I don't want to get this chipped. This is a, oh, is this a 3/4 inch? Okay, this is a 3/4 inch, what do you call this? Routing bit. Now, this routing bit is actually a little less than 3/4 inch, because did you know, and I should have known this, guys, but did you know that plywood is not actually 3/4 inch? I should have known this, but I didn't know this. I just assumed it was 3/4. It's actually a little smaller. It's 22/30. It's 22/32. So it's 22/32, which means it's a little smaller than 3/4 inch. And why does that matter? Well, when you're trying to do dados, if you're building furniture and you want a really strong joint and you don't want that furniture to fall apart, you want that dado joint to be rock solid. And you saw when I did that little test over here, it didn't quite fit in. That's what you want. You want it to be a little small so that it's a nice tight fit. So this routing bit is a little bit smaller than 3/4. It's actually 22/32, not 22/32, 22/32. And that's what we're going to use to put to do a dado. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment. Now, this tool that I was just talking about, we want this depth of this dado to be 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to set this to 1/4 inch, which is right there. And I'm going to lock that in place. Now, I've already set my plunge. This is a plunge router. I've already set this, so I don't have to make any adjustments. You may see that in an upcoming video. But one thing that you want to do whenever you're making adjustments is you can also do, and I don't know, the lighting may not be too good. Hold on, let's see if I can improve the lighting here. Okay.
That looks better.
All right. So we don't want to go down any further than this. All right. Because we don't actually want to route through this plywood. We want to make sure we've got enough plywood there for structural integrity. So we are actually going to do some routing. And if you've never seen a router, it's amazing. But it's very, very dusty. So I'm going to put my mask on. Kwabna's going to put his mask on. And you're going to get to see the routing. And this is kind of important because if you're building furniture or doing any kind of project, that groove, not the groove, that routing, that dado, it can't be crooked. Otherwise your furniture is not gonna, it's just not gonna work. So I'm gonna put my mask on here.
Can you give me one?
Yes. Oh, I need space in this garage, guys. I have like no space in this garage. Oh my gosh. You're gonna set it down.
Yeah, I got to.
And I'm actually paying him $5. So whoever donated the $5, thank you, because you're paying for his labor. All right, so here we go. And I'm hoping that I remember that I did this properly because I do not want to mess this up. I wonder where you're going to be able to see this best. Now this is going to be super messy too. So, all right, let me just make sure. So before I actually do anything, I'm just going to line this up and just make sure. Whoops. Let's see. looks like it might be right. Yeah, this looks right on. This looks spot on. So remember, there's a little bit of a gap here, and that's to account for the space between where the bit is going to drill into and where this fence is. And you're going to see this right along the fence. And it's kind of loud too, so I'm going to put some headphones. Quabna, do you need these?
I have headphones.
Oh, you have headphones.
Well, I just play music.
All right, let's see if we can get the best shot because I really want people to see this. All right. So when I'm working with this, I'm going to start off of the table. You might want to see, is there any way you can get over? Stand up, yeah, stand up there. There you go, because you're going to get, so before I actually start this, I want to make sure that it's running full speed. And where I'm looking at is I'm actually looking to make sure that I don't have any gaps between this part and the level. This is going to help me get a straight cut. All right, so it's going to go right back there. All right, so here we go. Please don't let me mess up on YouTube Live. That is dusty.
Hold on.
That is super dusty. Okay, so this looks pretty good. Yeah, we're going to keep our mask on. So this looks pretty good. It looks like I kind of missed the line just a fraction. I mean, like not even 1/16. And I think that's fine. I mean, it's not bad. That could just be my measurement. But yeah, so anyway, that's what I try to do is I try to clean up in between, because when you're doing woodworking, unless you have a good dust extraction system, which I do not have, and I will be getting very, very soon, and you're going to have a lot of fine particles in the air. So keep your mask on, but try to clean up as you go. And also too, if you have a lot of dust around, you kind of run the risk of stepping on it and slipping, and you don't want that to happen. So I'm just going to clean some of this up real quick. Okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'm going to keep the mask on because if I don't, I'm going to be breathing in particles, and I know you don't want me to get sick. Okay, so those are some of the tools. I think those are 3. There's another one that I've been using too, and I don't feel that it works as well. Can you guys still hear? Can you guys hear me okay? Can you just leave a comment if you can't hear me? I think it would probably help if I take my headphones off. Okay, so let's put this away. And there's another tool that I use for straight cuts, and I've had one before. I just bought a new one because I think they had updated it. This is called the Rip Cut by Kreg Jig. Well, by Kreg. And what this is, if you've never seen it, it is basically an attachment.
They can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, cool, cool. So what happens is that you're able to put pretty much any saw into this guide. And this allows you to do rip cuts. You can do some cross cuts. Now, just for those who don't know, a rip cut is a cut that's going with the grain, right? This is my piece of wood. It was 8 feet long. This is the grain. So this is a rip cut. This is a cross cut. This rip cut is perfect for doing cuts where you're not doing it free-handed. And I thought I would show you how this works, but honestly, the last couple of days I've been using it, and it starts out straight, but then it gets crooked. So it's something that I'm doing wrong, and I came up with another option, but I will just kind of try to demonstrate it here for you. I'll set it up in place, but I'm not going to use it because I'm going to show you what I think is better. So generally, let's say that I was cutting this board, what I would do, and I won't show you the setup of this because it would kind of be too much. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't show you the setup of this, but I will I think I'll link to some videos down below that I found that were pretty good. But basically what this allows you to do is if I was cutting this piece of wood, I could ride this all along the entire grain of this wood. And by doing that, uh-oh, hold on, about to lose a tool here. Let's put this stuff aside. By doing that, it allows me to keep this part against the side, you know, against the fence, and I'm able to run this all the way up. Honestly, I don't think that this has worked very well because I would start off nice here, and then by the time I would get down there, I'm off about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. So I tried this a couple times, didn't like it for long cuts, but if you're doing a shorter cut, let's say you're just doing, this is 21 inches. If you're doing a shorter cut, this actually works pretty well. But let me show you something else that I've been using. That, whoop, don't fall. Let's put it down here. Something else that I've been using, guys, and this is something that you can make right at home. It's like I wouldn't call it a track, but it's like a homemade DIY track. So let's move down here. Don't trip. All right. And I may do a demonstration for you guys on this if I can get it set up properly. So this here is just a homemade track. Okay, so if you've ever seen a track saw, and I actually would like to get a track saw. I've been looking at them. I don't have one. But what a track saw allows you to do is basically put your circular saw on a track, run it up the length of a sheet good, and be able to cut it off, and you've got a straight cut. I mean, foolproof, no table saw needed. It just gets the job done. The problem is track saws can be expensive. I actually was looking at one from Festal. Festal is very expensive, but they're top of the line. The Kreg, I think Kreg also makes one, Kreg, and I may look into that one. But this is a homemade track saw that you can make. Let me show you how it's actually made. So if you take a board that is, let's just do a quick measurement. This board is a little less than 8. Okay, so let's say you had a board, let's just say 10 inches, right? And this is just a scrap piece of sanded plywood that I got from the hardware store. What you want to do is have a 10-inch piece of board, and you take another piece. This is a scrap piece of PVC. Doesn't really matter. Just another scrap board. Doesn't have to be this thick. What it allows you to do, and I'll post a link to, I think This Old House did a really good demonstration on how to make this. So I'll post a link down below for that so you can make one. But let's say, for example, in fact, you know what? Let's do it. I'm actually going to do a demonstration for you.
Make sure you put your glasses on.
Yes, definitely. Safety is number one. All right, and this is the saw that I'm using. Guys, this saw is so freaking heavy. This is Milwaukee. I think I may have told you guys I had participated in a Home Depot blogger program where they would just send you tools to use for your projects. And so they sent me this Mamma Jamma. This thing is so heavy. I can barely lift it with one hand.
It's heavy.
It's very, very heavy, but it's solid as a rock. So when I created that DIY track saw, I made it with this saw, and it's been working really good. So I'm actually going to see if I can do a demonstration with it. This is a great way. I'm going to set it down here. This is a great way to get even cuts. Okay, let me not hit you, because I'm going to pull up another board. But this is a great way to get even cuts without having to buy a track saw or tracks or anything like that. All right, let's see if I can move a piece of this plywood.
This person said you outgrow your garage.
Thank you. I know, right? This is crazy. You know what I really need? I need a shed. Like, show them the bikes. Here's all the bikes. We have all the lawn equipment, and it gets in the way. So before I can have like a proper shop in here, I need to get a shed. And before I can build a shed, I need space to build. So it's like a catch-22. Okay, so these sheets of plywood. Oh, this is another tip for you guys too. If you're buying plywood, don't feel like you have to load these pieces into your car as 4x8s. Like, have them cut it down. I knew that there was no pieces that I'd be using that would be more than 21 inches wide. So I had them just cut it in half. So each of these are 24. I think I bought, I want to say 14 sheets, and they cut it down to 28 pieces. This plywood, guys, was $700. That's a lot. So when you spend money on plywood like that to build a closet, the last thing you want to do is ruin it by getting inaccurate cuts. So take your time and plan properly and make sure you've got the right tools. What side do I want to use? Let's use...
Okay, make sure you don't hit me this time.
I know, right? Okay. Here we go. Okay, so because this sheet is 28 inches, I'm just going to measure over 21. And remember, let's see, which side do I want to measure from? We'll measure from this side. Remember, this tool is perfect. So what I'm able to do, instead of taking out my...
Glasses on.
I'm not ready to cut yet. But instead of taking the tape measure and going 3 or 21, I'm going to just use this. Hoping that I can ride it along this length. All right, so I want 21. All right, let's start down here. So I'm going to stick it in the 21. Let's go back that way a little. And sometimes if you happen to get off track, you know, just take it back and restart. Of course, you need to have a clear table to do this. Oh, see there, I got, because I have stuff on the table. Usually what I'll do at that, who?
He's on another, because it keeps combinating in the thing.
Oh. Okay, let's see. Yeah, and this is, I'll tell you guys, this was one of the worries that I had about doing this project, is because I have so little space here in the garage. I really wondered whether I was going to be able to do this, but I mean, you know, I've been stepping over things, and it's been okay. Oops. The only thing about these mechanical pencils is that they break very easily. Okay, now I'm getting messy. Now, I think if I had probably used a tape measure, I would have had this. Why is it doing that? Okay. Another thing too, sometimes when you're marking your wood, you don't want to mark it too dark, because you gotta cover that up.
What's the tool called?
This is called the TS24 by Woodpecker. They make them in various sizes. I think this is the mid-range size. They're a little expensive. Sometimes they actually have specials. I think they're made in America, and I think that's good. They're made in America. They usually come out with something called one-time tools. Like, they do some real cool tool releases. And if you want that tool, you have to pre-order it. But yeah, they're a little bit more expensive.
It's called a TS34 by Woodpecker.
TS24. Yeah, so this is a 24-inch. And then they make one that's I think they do a 36, and they do one that's a little smaller too, by Woodpeckers. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually, because I've got this, now when you're using the circular saw, you always want to make sure whatever you're cutting off, you've got clearance under the table. So I don't want to have this over here, because I'll cut through my table and I could actually have some kickback, and you don't want that. So I'm actually just moving this out of the way a little bit. But if you notice, you see how unsteady my table is? I don't want to be cutting and my table fall off. So generally what I've been doing is putting a clamp over on the other side, just to make sure that when I have my saw going on it, that it's not going to fall off. Sometimes I'll put a piece of wood under here, just so that it's nice and tight. And then I'll secure this to the table. So now, if you look, I've got a pretty solid surface. I'm checking to make sure that there's nothing underneath. Looks good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully this will be a straight cut. Okay, so now the one thing that I will say about a track saw, and this is why a track saw is so great, because they make track saws that are like as long as your plywood. So all you got to do is just slap that track saw on there, run the saw up, and you're cut just like that. Because this is a DIY one, I'm going to be able to cut only to about here, and then I've got to move it forward. So, and if you have even if you have a professional track saw and you don't have it that's long enough, you can connect multiple ones together, or you can just move it. If you move it, you're not going to be as precise. But because we don't have a track saw, that's just what we got to do. All right, so another thing that I'll do too is I'll make sure this is connected to the table. So if you look, okay, so you see this line we just drew? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up this DIY track saw to the edge. Oh gosh. And I'm going to fall. Jeez, oh Pete. See, this is why I need a new work spot. Nobody was harmed in the making of this YouTube live. Okay, you know what it is? It's the tripod.
Yeah, you need to move out of the way.
Goodbye.
Oh, it's so bright.
I know. All right, sorry guys.
A little technical difficulties.
No one was harmed. Okay, so as I was saying, what I'm doing is I'm lining up this track saw here. You can see it's a little wobbly, but I'm going to attach it here with a clamp over on this side. Man, looking into that light kind of blinded me a little bit. Okay, so I'm just attaching that. Now the only problem, this is why a track saw is so nice, because up here I don't have anything to attach it to. I'm only allowing the weight of the circular saw to get this in place. But if we do this right, we should get a nice straight line.
Make sure you should be using a DIY one.
Well, if I had a track saw, I would be using it. I was so close to buying it the other day when I went to Woodcraft. If you're here in the local Maryland, DC area, there's a woodworking store called Woodcraft. They got all the best woodworking stuff. And I was this close to buying a track saw, and I was like, I'll come back, because it's expensive. And you know, it's not that I mind spending the money. It's just that this light is so blinding. It's not that I mind spending the money. It's just that I'm like right now I'm actually buying a new bed, a new sofa, because we've had it for 18 years. And so that's kind of where I'm spending my money right now, not on tools. It's a coming though, it's a coming. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set this on here.
Make sure you have ear protection.
Oh gosh, that's right. Let me put this one on. Thank you, 14-year-old son.
You're welcome.
42-year-old
X
mom.
amount of your mother.
Okay. So let's see if I can do this without. And now this is going to spit out a lot of.
Should I be on this side?
You can be over there. All right. So when I'm running my saw, I'm actually going to get started before it touches the wood, and I'm going to let it run at full speed first.
I just got hit with like a splinter or something.
What's that?
I just got hit with like a little splinter or something.
Nope. Okay, so now that we've gotten to the end of our board, now we actually have to, and I'll show you how this is a nice flush cut. I'm going to release it here, and I'm going to move it up because I don't have one. Ideally, it's good to have one that's long enough for your board. And I'm going to line this up. Now, the only thing is, and this wasn't a problem yesterday when I was doing it, is that I don't have anything to attach this to, but And I was actually looking on Amazon. I think there might be like a non-skid tape that I can put on the bottom of this. So this is a really, really economical way to get straight cuts without having to spend a lot of money. The only thing is that I have to go back.
I'm just gonna stay over here. I'm not trying to get cut.
All right. I'm going to stop it again. So now we can kind of finish this out. And you see that it's not really slipping, which is good. That's what we want. So when I sit it back on here, I have to actually kind of lift up this safety guard and kind of get it back into the kerf. The kerf is that 8-inch spacing. That's the width of the blade. All right, here we go. I'm gonna let that stop and bring it all the way up. That thing is so heavy. Okay, so let's stick this over here.
You have a dust.
That's a lot of dust. But check this out. Look at this, guys. Do you see? This is flush. This means it was cutting exactly on the line. And if you look, if I measure this, it should be 21. Let's hope. If it's not,
it's not focusing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Get that measurement. 21.
On the dot.
On the dot. Let's take another measurement here. This one's a little off, but only by like 1/16. That's probably where we had to move the. Let's try it
Yeah,
again.
probably is where you have to move it.
And over
Look
here.
at the dust on my socks.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to clean that off when you get inside. And if you look here, this is also 21. So overall, that's a pretty good cut. So, you know, if you're cutting boards, definitely, if you don't want to get a track saw, and if you don't want to spend, I don't care. So if you don't want to, oh, there's one other way I wanted to show you to get straight cuts too. And I will do this on a sample board, because this is actually my project piece, and we don't want to cut that. I'm going to move this back a little bit. I'll show you one more. I think that's the last one. Okay, I think I had 6 to show you. Don't worry.
It's been 43 minutes.
43 minutes? My goodness.
Yeah, time flies when you're having
when you're using power tools.
When you're cutting up stuff.
Okay, so this is one other thing I will show you guys. Let me move this out just a little bit. The last tool for getting straight cuts, and this is good when you're doing small little cross cuts. You know, if you're making, oh, let me actually put this down here. If you're making cuts in, this is a 3-inch piece that we just cut off, right? A lot of times when I'm working on projects, I can't move that. When I'm working on projects, I'm not doing large cuts like this because I don't do a lot of big time building. A lot of times when I'm cutting, I'm working with smaller pieces like this. Now, you could use a circular saw for them, but I know there's a lot of people who don't know how to use tools and they're very uncomfortable with that. There is a video, and I will link to it down below or up in the corner. It's a free 30-minute tutorial on how to use a jigsaw. And if you are new to using tools, I highly recommend you start with this. This is so easy. This is a rigid jigsaw, and what's great about it is that you can do quick cuts, but if you change the blade, which I'll show you here, I do not have a battery in it, so I'm going to change the blade. If I can get it out here. If you change this blade, well, actually, let me point out one thing about this blade. This is another thing too, with getting straight cuts, you have to have the right blade. This blade is called, well, you can't see it now because I'm using it.
It's not really focusing. Okay.
This is called a dual cut blade. And the reason why it's called dual cut is because most times on a jigsaw, when that blade, let's say this is your wood, and it's going down like this, it's cutting on the upstroke. It's like cut, cut. And what happens is that you get a lot of clean cuts down here, but down here it gets kind of wonky. This is a blade where it actually cuts on the upstroke and on the downstroke.
Someone asked, does it bend easily?
No, it doesn't. Now this is a blade for straight cuts. Let me show you the one that's used for doing some decorative cuts. So I've got, yeah, here we go. Bring it over here. This is also the same. This company is called Starrett. And if you notice, this one's thinner. This is a scroll saw blade. So if you had seen on my channel, you may not have, but
put them next to each other.
There you go. If you ever want to do decorative cuts, like if you've seen people when they do cutouts, wooden cutouts of their kids' names for like nurseries and things like that. If you want to do that kind of cutting, you want to use a blade like this. It's thinner, but again, you see that the blade, the blade points are pointing up, and then here it's pointing down. That means you're going to get a really good cut. But because this is thinner, it allows you to maneuver easily like this. So if you're cutting, you can do like this. You can do circles, you can do swivels, cut out people's names, and do all kind of cool stuff. We're just going to do a straight cut with this. This does not allow you to do that decorative cutting. So check out that video down below. There is a link. You'll be able to. Here, let me take that. Just set it here. So when you're getting straight cuts, the blade does matter. Like I said, that's why I love this blade. And I'm going to stick this back in here. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're going to, you can't see it, Kwabna. Move back a little. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stick this blade in here. Give it a tug, make sure it's good. So this is another way that I do straight cuts. This is using a speed square. If you notice, this also has a lip on it. Got a little lip, a little edge on it, just like that more expensive one that I just showed you from Woodpecker. The reason why this works very well for small cuts is that you can easily hook it on the edge, and now you've got a straight edge. So whenever you're cutting, you can easily ride this along and get a straight cut without even measuring. But, you know, of course, if I'm making a project, I may know that I want to cut it right here. But if where I cut isn't important, as long as it's straight, this is how I do an even cut.
Have your soundproofing,
Oh, my
hearing, I don't know what it's called.
my hearing, yeah. Usually when I'm in the garage, I'm always working with earphones. But because I'm talking, I want to be able to hear you. Okay, so when you're doing this cut, make sure that you're holding this in place. You don't want this to fall off. Keep your fingers out of the way. And always start your blade back here. Let it run full speed before you make contact with the wood. And of course, make sure that it's
Clamp down.
Yeah, you've got to clamp. All right, so wait till that blade stops, bring it up. If you notice, we should have a nice even cut. And there you go. It's a nice straight 90-degree cut. So definitely have one of these in your workshop when you're doing even cuts. Now, if you look back here, I actually have a bigger one. You know, if you're doing a wider board, you can actually hook this on. I do find, like, for example, you know, even if I was cutting this, you know, this is an option. I could put that on there, use my circular saw. When I get to this point, I could then flip it over and finish my cut. So have a small one. I think this is, what is this, 7 inches? 7 inches. And then this is,
tell me what's it called again?
this is a speed square. Yeah, so it's actually like a roofing square. You find it in construction. A lot of times roofers will use this for creating rafters. Rafters have to have certain angles to them when you're cutting them. But this is great when you're doing just straight, simple cuts. You can also do 45-degree cuts too. So, you know, if you don't have a miter saw, you could actually pivot this Okay, so this if you've never learned how to do a 45-degree cut on this, I'll show you. All right, so get this club knot. Over here in this corner, it says pivot. All right? It says pivot. That's your pivot point. So I'm holding this with my finger. Okay, now move out. I've got some numbers here.
People are saying you need to be at HGTV.
Well, thank you, darling. Thank you. Okay, so if you've got your finger here on the pivot point, you can move this out just like this until it hits that 45 degrees. Boom, right there, 45. So you see how it says 45 is lined up? So if you move out, now if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to cut 45 degrees, I could mark that 45. I'm not going to do that because this is my project piece. But that's oftentimes how people, you know, who are not using this for construction, or maybe construction people will also use it too. But, you know, it doesn't have to be 45. Maybe you're trying to make a 25-degree cut. But you're just pivoting this along the pivot point. And this works really well when you're trying to do a 45-degree cut here. Can you get a little wider? There you go. All right, so you got pivot. Move it out, move it out, move it out. Boom, hits the 45. And now you can just draw your line. Or, now that you have your line there, you could actually then move it out and you can cut this. In fact, let's just cut this with a jigsaw. Move this. I'll show you this real quick and then we'll end it. Because my son has to go clean up the kitchen. We have a dishwasher, but his name is Quabana.
Hey.
I mean, you know, we have a dishwasher, but it's like, why, you know, I'm trying to teach him how to be responsible. So it's not just about putting dishes in the, let's see if we can cut this. So let's say this line that we just made, let's say we wanted to cut this. So what I'm going to do, let's see here. I got to get myself, sometimes trying to figure out which way you're putting this. Okay, hold on. Which way did I do? Actually, I think it would be over here. Now I'm confusing myself. Oh, here we go. Well, that's not going to work. But let's see if you can do this freehand. I can't really see it too well. All right, so there's your perfectly 45-degree cut right here on your board. See? Back a little so you can actually see it. There you go. So that's how you can, this way, there you go. So that's how you can cut 45 degrees and get a nice, just by using your speed square and being able to pivot this. Actually, I'm in the wrong direction. Which way did I do? That's the hardest part of learning. That's the hardest part of using the speed square is sometimes you'll be like, wait, which way? Which way do I go? But yeah, so that's how you do it. And sometimes, you know, what you can do is once you cut a nice 45 degree and you know you're going to be making repeated cuts, you can just use the same one as a template. If you know that one's good, now you can just keep making the same. So if you can create pieces where you can just easily repeat, that'll give you cuts. And I'll tell you one last thing, one last tip. And this is super important, guys. In construction, and this is probably true of building furniture or whatever you're doing projects, you have to decide as the person building it, right? As the woodworker, do you want to cut on the line? Do you want to take the line, or do you want to leave the line? And this is what I mean. So come down here. So let's say that we were cutting, you can see that, let's say we were cutting this, right? So, and this is why some people don't get accurate measurements, because they think, oh, okay, well, I just made a line, let's just cut this line. That's not necessarily true. Let me make this a little darker so you can see it. You have to decide if you're going to always cut the line if you're going to leave the line or if you're going to take the line. And that's something that's has to be determined before you start your project so that you have the same repeated cuts. So as a woodworker or DIYer, you can cut right on this line. You can take your tool and cut right on this line. Now the width of most blades, at least I can say with a circular saw, hold on, let me get this. So take a look at this blade real quick, guys. This blade is about an 1/8 of an inch. Although this one looks to be a little thinner, but the width of this blade is called your kerf. And so when you're cutting, you have to keep in mind that when you're cutting and you want this to be, let's say, 2 inches, if you cut directly on the line, guess what? It's actually going to be a little less than 2 inches, right? So need a fine edge. Yeah. So if you cut directly on the line, you're actually going to be cutting into your measurement. You're going to be cutting into a little bit. So what I tend to do is when I draw a line here, I try to cut a little bit to the side. I like to leave the line. I like to cut right to the edge. Because also keep in mind, if you take the edge, then you're cutting into your measurement. And if you do that, that might be okay, but you got to do it that way every single time. So keep that in mind. That's one thing that makes a huge difference whenever you're trying to get straight cuts, whenever you're trying to get even cuts. Your cuts are not, they're not adding up. You're like, what did I do wrong? I thought I measured properly. But it also depends on how you cut and making sure that you keep in mind that blade actually has a width to it. Okay, so what I generally do is I try to keep the line. Sometimes if I'm not cutting straight, I cut into the line and you're like, oh, okay. But when you're working on a project, pick a method. Either I say leave the line, cut right on the edge of it and leave the line. Then you'll always get good measurements. Guys, if you have any questions that I didn't address, leave it down below. I'll try to come back and answer your questions. I'll leave links. I'll go back through this video and leave links to everything that I talked about. But those are just some of the tools that I'm using to build this closet organizer, and I'm crossing my fingers that I can get it done in the next couple of weeks. It was my September project. I said, I'm going to get this done. And I had a huge project that Home Depot offered me, and they said, hey, will you do this in September? I said, no, I'm building my closet in September. So if you don't hear from me, if you don't see me uploading videos, just know it's because I'm doing this. And I'll try to do more lives so that I kind of give you like a behind the scenes and I'm staying active on my channel. But just realize I'm around. I'm okay.
Do more on, what is it called?
What?
The surveys or whatever it's called? I forgot.
Oh, yeah, we did a survey. We did a survey because I was asking you guys what you wanted to see in September. And I know a lot of you said furniture makeover. And if you can show that, that's the piece that I've been wanting to make over. But I've got to get this closet done first. When I started this closet, it was, oh gosh, it was last October. If you guys remember, I was removing the wallpaper and painting and all of that stuff. And it's been almost a year. October will be 1 year since I started that project. So I have to get this closet done. So just bear with me. I'm around. I'm filming the entire time I'm doing all these things. I'm filming, and I will have like a more edited, clean version to show you. But hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you found this helpful, give me a thumbs up. Definitely check out my other videos, and check out my blog too. And also too, guys, if you are on Instagram, I'm there. Just look for Thrift Diving. But better yet, if you want to subscribe to my blog, most of you don't know that I have a blog too. And if you subscribe, you get 5 ebooks, printables, checklists, things that you get just from putting in your email address and subscribing. Because then I send you an email maybe once every 2 weeks. And so if you miss anything, you'll definitely get the email. All right, guys, it was so fun sharing this with you, and I hope you found it helpful. I will see you next video, next live. Time to clean up and go to bed.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. See you. Thanks for watching.
I want to turn it off.
Let's see. Right there.